So in today's Playbook episode, we're going to talk about the state of outbound. We're going to focus some on AI. We're going to talk about trends. We're going to talk about what to expect in 2026. The timing being December is pretty good for this. We've had a whole year of at Outbound Squad working with a ton of clients. We have a guest today that has, you know, been at his org for 9 years, worked his way up to the top. Um, that just works with a ton of different customers, has hundreds of SDRs. Like we're going to get a really good perspective on like the current state of outbound and where it's heading. And we're going to give you by the end of this call 7 ways that we feel like you can win in 2026. So I'm just chomping at the bit to get in. So I want to do one quick thing. I want to shout out ZoomInfo, our sponsor. We've had a great partnership with ZoomInfo, but I think the biggest thing if you're here watching this is that ZoomInfo does a lot of great things outside of just providing emails and cell phone numbers. So when it comes to AI and really leading the forefront around one, eating their own cooking and using this stuff in-house with their go-to-market team and helping customers, whether it be the marketing and sales functions, like really leverage that data, whether it be intent, whether it be the outbound motion, whether it be the sales motion and using their co-pilot to gather insights. If I'm an exec hopping into a deal cycle, like they just do everything. So make sure to check out ZoomInfo. All right. So without further ado, Sean, dude, welcome to the show. Sean's VP of Sales Development at ZoomInfo. We just met, I think, a week or two ago. So I'm excited to jam and dig in, man. It's good to have
Yeah,
you.
appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I see some fellow Philadelphia people in the chat. So hello to all of you as well.
There we go. Sean's from Philly. And if you're coming across us for the first time, my name's Jason Bay. At Outbound Squad, our I think that we help with is really helping sales teams turn complete strangers into paying customers. So a lot of what we help with is if you're an organization that's looking to pivot more towards outbound, you want AEs to self-source more pipeline. Reps maybe need to be a little bit more strategic and land more enterprise style meetings or meetings with folks that are more senior. We help with everything from training those reps, working with the leaders, building the playbooks, the processes, all that kind of stuff. And we've done it for companies like your Shopify's, your Zooms of the world, and more. So let's dig in. I think to set the stage, Sean, what would be really great is, and I'm curious in the chat as you guys are watching this and hearing Sean kind of dig into this, we would love interaction and hear how this is personally affecting you as a rep or a leader inside of your org as well. But Sean, why don't you talk a little bit more about like how the current state of SEO and inbound marketing is driving like a significant need right now for the teeter totter to kind of go more towards the outbound side of things. Like, what have you guys been seeing at ZoomInfo, and what are you seeing with your customer base?
Yeah, I think this is the interesting topic of conversation that I wouldn't have expected a year ago to, be a headline, but it is. I think the wave and the number of places that you can go do homework and find information with AI now is it's pretty telling. We are subject to it just like everybody else. We spend a lot of money to drive a lot of people to our website, and it's harder to do now. It's more expensive to do. You're competing for space, you're bidding. And I think the reality is it's a decision you have to make in terms of value and productivity. Um, for us as a business, we know that, because we separate our business inbound reps and outbound reps, and that's a progression model. And we know that the average inbound rep, based on the lead volume we get, is of a higher value than, say, the average outbound rep in terms of, say, like pipeline dollars built in a month. But that's the truth because we know and we take the approach of understanding the measure of where we get the most out of a rep. And we look at that through like MQLs per SDR per day on our inbound side.
Yep.
And we know that that breaking point is somewhere between 6 and 7 per day is where we start to see our first fall off of, conversion to a meeting. And then we have this conversation, and we've had it a lot this year. In like, are we being productive enough, or do we need to repurpose personnel to the outbound side where we have ZoomInfo naturally, we have tools to help people go to market effectively, kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid. And that's on the back of like everything now for us. Like our outbound, I was telling you this last week, Jason, it's like my outbound team, I've been overseeing the outbound group here pretty much since I moved into leadership about 8 years ago. This is the biggest my outbound teams have ever been. We were just shy of 150 outbound reps, and it's the smallest that the inbound team has ever been since I joined the company about 9 years ago. So we have taken that to heart. It's just the reality. We can't have reps on inbound sitting there twiddling their thumbs, looking for things to do because the lead volume is slowed. We
Mhm.
optimize at this certain level of MQLs per rep per day. And then when we have in excess of that in terms of personnel, we prioritize to the outbound. And we've scaled the SMB, we've scaled mid market, we've scaled enterprise. But yeah, we've certainly not been lucky in that sense. We've felt it just like everybody else has. And we went full steam ahead about mid year, prioritizing the outbound headcount and overstaffing compared to prior state.
Yeah. The interesting part to me with this in selling sales technology is you would think this is the sexiest thing you could possibly sell for inbound. So I have to imagine for everyone else watching this that if inbound is slow for sales tools, that it's probably pretty slow across a bunch of other industries. I would love to hear from you and the guys in the chat. How is this resonating with you? Have you noticed in the last maybe year and a half that there aren't as many strong inbound deals coming in and you're having to hunt a little bit more, especially for you account executives? Yeah, absolutely yes. 100%. Historic low, Cat says. So So I think on one part, we have a need for outbound because inbound is slowing down. The other thing I wanted to do, Sean, is give people some perspective on what it's like to be a buyer right now. And if we just look at the sales engagement category on G2, I mean, there are 227 tool options for sales engagement. When you were getting started back in the day in 2017, and I remember doing some outbound in 2014 as well, where sales engagement wasn't yet a category and there were tools that would help you send out the email, but it wouldn't send out the follow up. It was like a task that would remind you to do it. You couldn't call. I mean, it was like the wild, wild west. And then cadences came out and it was like the ultimate like unlock, right?
Yeah.
But I share this because I think it's really important to understand like the buyer relative to outbound and how it impacts it as well. And you just look at all the data. I mean, most buyers don't feel like this people that sell to them understand them or their role. The Gartner stat is really interesting too. There's so many solutions out there promising to do things for buyers that over half the time B2B execs experience buyers regret. They purchase things that don't deliver on the outcome that they were promised. And this brings us to the buying environment. Sales cycles are longer right now. There are more stakeholders involved than ever in deals. And for the most part, buyers are wanting to get started smaller. They want to get started with that proof of concept or proof of value. They want to get started with something small before they commit. And the way that this really impacts outbound is, it just ain't 2022 anymore. The wallet's harder to open. It's got less cash in it. $100 feels more like 50. There's dozens or hundreds of competitors who are selling the same stuff as you, and your buyer's been burned before. So that makes outbound pretty hard when you don't have that shiny new thing to sell people and they've already experienced this before and they have less money to go around. So what I want to get into now is, what can we actually do about this? And we've outlined 7 strategies that we're going to dig through. And I just want to start with the first one. I think this is, Sean, one that you have the most energy around too, offers. And the reason why I think this is so important is that when things are really good and the economy is really great and people have a lot of money to spend, they don't really need a strong reason to meet with you. It's like, oh, you know, I'm sure at some point in your career, Sean, at ZoomInfo, you've also been like, oh yeah, of course we're open to checking out new technology. We want anything can help us. And now it's like, do I want to go through the headache of having to pitch my finance team on like why we need this and pitch our team on why we should do this and the offer really has to it really has to be compelling enough that if a buyer meets with you, they're going to extract some sort of value from that, not just a demo from your solution. So I want to pause before we dig in here. What's your perspective on offers and how do you guys think of this at ZoomInfo?
Yeah, I wish we got to call people and they were like, "Sure, I've got money to spend."
Yeah.
That we don't hear that all that often anymore. But It's about being compelling. I think you used that word. I think like anything, your outreach also has to be timely. That's where this the signal based approach that we've taken and being able to leverage certain technology to understand our company's window shopping, right? Are they hitting the website, but they're not filling a form out? Maybe they're in the research stage. Um, or it's like I can go online and, or I can go into ZoomInfo and I can call a prospect and I can say, hey, Jason, not sure if you know it, but I've got about 25 companies right in your backyard that are looking for exactly what you do, your service or solution. That's compelling, right? It's further, even more compelling. They get on a call with us and they're looking at this and they're like, I know, yeah, I know about them, or I know about them, or hey, we actually work with them. So like we're really hitting it on the head. And they're being able, they're able to see this. But I think the whole idea, it's like it's not a opportunity to just call and discount. I think there's a difference, right? Like if you're just bait and switch to get somebody on the line, never ends well, right? Your
Yep.
reputation takes a hit. They'll never revisit with you. But I think it's about urgency and timeliness and relevancy more than any other maybe adjective to use there. Because if I can, convince you to take the time out of your day because I just got done interrupting you, right? I called you out of the blue. You weren't expecting it, maybe. You show up and you can walk away saying, like, you know what? That's not something I have today. That's something that helps me prioritize, that helps me put a focus on it. Hey, I know my market, but I don't know where to start with my market. Any of those
Mhm.
things that you can help somebody, in our 2 cents, we can help anybody with that, they walk away feeling some value. But
Yeah.
it is about urgency and relevancy. And like, if you're not hitting those points, you're just another cold call. You call back a week later, they won't remember you.
Yep.
There was nothing there for them to remember you by.
So timeliness, urgency, relevance. The acid test question I always like to ask
Yeah.
is, how could you, like, would the buyer feel irresponsible for not taking the meeting with you? And if I'm getting called by ZoomInfo and I run a local business, let's say a cleaning business, I don't know, and I'm running it here in Seattle, and you're saying that you have some data and some intent data on like companies that I could be reaching out to that are actively looking for services like this, it would be irresponsible for me not to take that meeting.
Yeah. And listen, some people need to be convinced further, right? Like a cold call from a stranger might not be enough. And that's where you can take the extra step and you can send them the follow-up, right? Hey, I'll give you a little sneak peek of what I'm talking about. Hey, do these companies ring a bell? Hey, are you aware of these? Right? You put a little bit out there, they'll bite, right? Because
Yeah.
if it is relevant and it is something that can be profitable and revenue producing for that person, they're going to come back around. But, sometimes that first cold call doesn't land. Sometimes they need the visual. Sometimes they need a little bit more than just that 30-second, 90-second pitch, however much time they end up giving you. And I think it's a great way to get off that no and turn it into a yes. Because it's all about, again, it's a convincing thing, but people think their time is extremely valuable, which it is valuable.
Yeah.
If I could put something out there to make you chew on it, the very least, I'll call you back in a couple of days and ask if you saw it, make you bring it up, talk to you about it a little bit more. And maybe by
Yeah.
then it's digested a bit. And yeah, you have that like, non-buyer remorse of like, well, I'll never know if I don't check it out. And I think that's the
Yep.
point we want to try to get to.
So let's talk about how to do that because Victoria Jordan, I'll hook you up here. So Victoria was asking, do you have examples of offers? I have a bunch of examples actually of offers I'm going to share with you right now. Because you might not be selling Zoom info and intent data that's something that you could show the customer. You might not have something that you can like share a screenshot of. So I'll talk about that here in a second. So the objective with the offer, it's buyers really take meetings for two reasons, right? I mean, they have an immediate problem that they're looking for a fix for, which is really a very small part of your market that's like that educated that is like actively going to buy something. Data shows that's about 3% of your TM. Two is FOMO. It's like, am I going to miss out on some sort of insight that, to your point, Sean, is timely, that is urgent for me right now, or is highly relevant to a peer of mine or my industry or what I'm working on and care about? So there's different types of offers. We actually did a big study on 85 million cold emails, by the way, and offers as a call to action. They have the highest reply rate. It'll increase your reply rate by up to 28% by including a great, compelling offer in your cold email. The same works over the phone. So we did quite a bit of work with Shopify. One of the things that you can do as a rep, if you sell a sell to consumer facing businesses, so B2C businesses, a lot of B2B actually you can experience firsthand as well, is experience the brand. I mean, Shopify sells to e-com stores and like brick and mortar type stores. Like, dude, going into the store and taking a selfie in front of I just talked to a big group about this yesterday, right? Purchasing the product if you can, signing up for their email newsletters, like get into their ecosystem and actually experience the brand. That is an incredible offer because you can give them a unique perspective on whatever it is that you sell and the problems that you saw through the process. Another thing that they would do that was pretty cool too is do like essentially a free conversion audit. They would actually go through the funnel, buy something, add it to the cart, see if a reminder email was sent. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do to experience it firsthand. Now, if you're saying, hey, Jason, I don't sell something like that, I can't really show it. This is something I feel like you guys do at ZoomInfo pretty well too. I call it selling the blind date. So this company that we worked with, Path Robotics, they sell an automated software and hardware as a service. So it's an automated welding solution that will like weld these like trailer parts and all kinds of crazy manufacturing type stuff. What their SDRs would do is they'd say, hey, Sean, I actually want to set you up to talk with Dave. He's got about 10 years of working with VPs of manufacturing like yourself at companies like Cat and Caterpillar and a couple of others. And he's going to be able to show you how they're automating some of the really hard to automate welding parts, along with
Mhm.
how they're dealing with the labor shortage right now in the welding market. Let's set you up tomorrow with him. And it's like, oh, I'm not just going to talk to a salesperson. I'm going to talk to someone that like really knows their shit, which is very powerful. So this as a must for any SDR on the call, this is something you could literally start doing right away for your account executive. If you're an account executive, one of the things that you can do is sell the experience of yourself or your SE. So if you have a solutions engineer or architect that hops on the first calls because you sell something very technical, sell that person's expertise. So it's really great with like cybersecurity and that sort of stuff. Um, there are assessments that you can do. So one of my clients sells to e-com businesses, and you might get a kick out of this, Sean. They actually had their marketing team mystery shop 200 e-com businesses. And the way that they would open the cold calls was, hey, Sean, we actually mystery shop you in Patagonia and North Face. And we found that you have the slowest response time via chat and email. And I wanted to talk to you about that real quick. You got a minute? It's
I
like
love
the
that.
people would get kind of triggered when I listen to the recordings, but you have their attention,
Yeah.
right? So this requires your marketing team to help. And then there's other free stuff. Like you guys offer like the intent stuff you can show people. There's all kinds
Mhm.
of things that you can show. So that's the offer. Sean, anything you would add to any of this stuff before we move to the next one around like the offer, the importance, examples of offers, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think about buying software anymore is like anything else. You do a lot of research on it prior to engaging in the conversation, whether go to buy a car, watch, anything. People show up more educated now, I think, than ever to
100%.
engage in these
Yep.
conversations. And I think so, when you think about this, like, people are experiencing you ahead of talking to you. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Sometimes it's a preconceived notion about one thing or another. And sometimes it's just pure excitement because they're like, well, I've heard it from people, I've seen it. Yeah, now I need to see it for myself. And I think number three is really important, the blind date of, somebody who spends their whole day engaging with heads of sales and marketing and revenue operations teams, selling them what is relevant to them and the tens of thousands of customers with all these unique use cases is what we reteach back to our sellers to give them the
Yep.
ability to get in front of a prospect and speak to them, their industry, their needs, use the customer voice, get in front of things like this is what I saw somebody do here. This is how somebody's leveraging this for this. And I think that that's the one that makes the difference. But right, it's about like sometimes I got to prove it, right, and sometimes it's a matter of pulling data and showing somebody their addressable market and prioritizing and cutting that down and showing them the the what they're going to walk away with. And sometimes you got to do that because someone's not going to be convinced till they see it, test it. Um, and that's the one thing where, you can trial it and jump in. And, a lot of times we don't even have to get there because the value will sell for itself. But yeah, that's a good list right there.
Let's keep moving. I'm seeing a lot of chatter in the chat, which I'm loving. If you have a specific question you want us to get to, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of Zoom. That'll help kind of separate it from the chat, and we can answer as many of those questions as you want. One thing I did see, Leah, you asked, is inviting them to an event, live webinar, or something of that nature, put their guard down? Is that an offer essentially? It can be. Live webinars, depending on the topic, could be a little tough, but like an event, like a networking dinner or a happy hour that you're doing around a conference or a VIP dinner, like there's all kinds of really high value things that you can invite people to. Okay, we got to keep moving. We got 7 of these and we're starting number 2. Targeting. So the second strategy is essentially this idea of saying no. It's I'm not going to reach out to everyone that could use my solution or products and services, etc. I'm going to be really selective actually because outbound is a shit ton of effort. It's very hard. It gets harder every year to get people to pick up the phone, respond to emails, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to choose wisely on where I spend my efforts. I'm going to stay narrow. I'm going to go deep. And what we talk about at Outbound Squad is making the sales funnel look less like a funnel and more like a martini glass. It's about shrinking down your top of funnel and going deeper where it matters. How do you guys think about this at ZoomInfo? Have you thought about, is segmentation a big thing that you guys think about? I know moving up into enterprise has been a really big focus for you guys in the last couple of
Mhm.
years. How do you think about like really narrowing down where a rep should be spending time, where they're going to be most likely to win?
Yeah, I mean, I think once upon a time when we didn't have segment specific teams, it was kind of you could do everything. Well, what do you think most reps did? Path of least resistance, right? They're gonna
Yep.
they're gonna shy away from the large enterprise businesses, the larger, say, mid-market businesses. Um, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to having a strategy for your prioritization. Whether that's based on industry, vertical, size, revenue, however you want to look at it. Your total addressable market is your total addressable market for a reason, and your ICP is your ICP for a reason. But even beyond that, it's more about like when to contact somebody, what to say. We preach that a lot, and that's the same idea with the campaigns we build, the lists that we build for our outbound teams. Um, so often, and more often than not, it's based on a recent signal. Somebody came to our website. Somebody's doing an abnormal amount of research on one topic or another, and we put that as the highest layer of prioritization because if you know who to call and now you know what to say, right? And the timing's now right because they're out there
Yep.
looking. That's our way of baking it in. That's what I think gives our outbound team the edge. Because anything other than that is the spray and pray model that we know does not work.
100%. Edward asks, how do you balance shifting to the martini glass when you're in the GTM phase and still refining an ICP? You make your best educated guess, Edward, on what you think will work, and you treat it like a science experiment. So that's sort of how we, almost a decade ago now, ended uh, like with SaaS being a really big focus for our customer base. It's like this is just the niche that we tended to settle in because this is where the need was. So Edward, I would set up maybe 2, at most 3 different ICPs where I want to test some of this stuff, and I would follow where the existing momentum is. Where is the existing outbound or inbound rather coming in? Where are you guys winning deals? Like you can use a lot of that to inform where you should spend your time from an outbound standpoint. So great answer or great question, Edward. Um, there's a couple different simple things, y'all, that you can do in this area. We had a client with an SDR team in a single month increased their pipe gen by 170%. And this happened within a 90-day period by just simply saying, we have 11 verticals that we could reach out to. 3 of them are where we win most of our deals and where we land most of our meetings and opportunities. Let's just say no to everything else for now. So you can segment by industry. You can segment by persona. You can segment by triggers. The further up market you go into being more enterprise and strategic, the more mindful you need to be about the industry. But the segmentation, like that is the strategy. Like think of how much better your messaging will be when you can segment by industry and speak to every retailer, let's say the same way, and not have to customize the message so much every time. And it's going to feel like it's for them. The industry and persona based segmentation is just like it is a must. You got to think about that stuff. Okay. Strategy 3, messaging. So this is like the first exercise we do, Sean, when we work with a new customer is
Yeah.
this is nothing against my fellow marketers. I consider myself a marketer, and it's nothing against product marketers or enablement teams or anything like that. I just noticed that most of the stuff they come up with messaging, it's not quite in a format that's easily used by a rep for outbound.
Hmm.
The 45-page command of message document again is great, but I'm like, if I'm an SDR, that doesn't tell me what to say in the first 30 seconds of the call. Like, how do I use that information? So this is something that we help with, but I don't even, I hate to even call this a trend though, because this is just something you should be doing from the from the beginning. But like a lot of what you guys do so well at ZoomInfo, and I want your take on this, is like, yeah, sell the buyer what they're already sold on. Like, what are their like goals and challenges right now, and just align your solution to that and use language that they use, right? And it's this idea of something you guys have talked about so much, this product voice versus customer voice. It's not talking about a unified commerce platform. It's talking more about the founder who feels stuck in the mud and is feeling a lot of pressure to keep up. And they have three different platforms for stuff and their life's really stressful. It's like that is the thing that you want to talk about. So I want to kick it over to you. How do how do you guys as an organization think about like messaging, and how do you stay fresh and up to date with what your buyers really care about and the language they use? How does that happen for you and the team?
Yeah. Many lessons learned over the course of time. I think, you know, it was probably a handful of years ago. I think one of the SDRs got a pushback on a cold call, which was like, "Are you reading me off a one pager right now? Like, are
Oh,
you,
damn.
you know?"
That's the worst call out, dude, when you're cold
Yeah,
calling.
right. New to outbound, trying to get
Yeah.
comfortable. And it's just one of those things where, like, if you have customers who've found their success, you've attached the right solution to the right problem. Tell the story every time. You need to give somebody something they give a damn about. um,
Yep.
if you're going to get on the phone and just product feature dump, they can get all that information off your website. They'll find it online. It's the real
Yep.
life story of changing a company's trajectory, a rep's trajectory. Those were the favorite stories, right? It was like being able to tell the story about, hey, we allowed this company to, or we helped this company make more pipeline, increase connect rates, book more meetings. The cooler stuff is like, hey, like I was doing all this stuff manually once upon a time, and this value is so great that I don't have to be at the office till 8 o'clock at night anymore. I get to go to my kid's baseball game, soccer game, and like you get to attach like the human element to the value you're
Mhm.
adding to the. It's twice as compelling. And you start telling people stories like this, it resonates. Like, we've all been there. Like, hey, I can't make it. I got this to do, right? In a very manual world, that's a reality for a lot of people. But I think if you have the marketing team, or even just as a seller, you know who you've closed business with, you know the reason they bought from you. Do the follow
Yeah.
up. Ask, what has it done for your business? Get the case study, leverage that, right? And then start building that into your talk. Like, hey, Jason, I work with, I think it's, I work with a lot of VPs of sales in this industry who are trying to solve this problem. Hey, we've got millions of call recordings and analysis that tells me the things that VP of sale deal with most often are this, right? This is the biggest problem
Yeah.
we're trying to solve. You put yourself in their shoes, they're going to be a lot more it's receptive, especially when this is all being done through outbound, right? So the interrupt, quick value, resonate,
Yeah.
get on the same page as them. But yeah, it is a cornerstone for us for sure.
The stories are it's just so big. Yeah, Colin says, God, it would be awesome to work for a company with resources like ZoomInfo. You can create your own resources, you guys. Like we work with a ton of companies that are not the size of ZoomInfo. Like two-thirds of our customer base is companies that have less than 20, 25 reps. Like you can create a lot of your own resources. Like one hack I would recommend is if you're doing any kind of call recording, there's a transcript that gets generated from that. Drop it into Gemini or ChatGPT, and you can do an exercise I'm about to show you here in a second. Like you could get all of this insight to like drop into your messaging. Like you could do it yourself. That's how powerful these AI tools are. I want to ask you about storytelling though, because storytelling is the thing that oftentimes I hear senior leaders say they want the most, and the reps are at least, I don't want to say least capable of doing, but it's happening like very few times on an actual call, in an email, in a sales call, etc.
Yeah.
How do you guys teach like the customer stories? Like, so if I'm a new SDR, let's say, and I'm coming in and I'm fairly new to sales probably, and I don't know any of the customer stories. Like, do you arm them with a few? Does the manager kind of work with like how do you get them going with that when they haven't maybe sold the thing before? They haven't talked to really many people. That's going to be where kind of a lot of the people watching this, I would assume, be
Yeah.
when they might not have some of those customer stories yet.
Yeah, it's the customer advocacy pages that we've built out over time. It's the case studies that we've built out. All this stuff is warehoused. It's experience, right? All of our SDR leaders are former SDRs, and most of
Mhm.
them are former SDRs at ZoomInfo, right? So they're
That's great.
managing reps in a role that they did at the same company.
Yeah.
Um, I think the push is for a lot of reasons. Like we talked about just being able to be relatable and talk to them. But I think also it's like the more you can accomplish up front, the less you put on the shoulders of the seller later, right?
Yes.
And if I can get to the heart of a problem, then I can take some discovery off the plate of the AE who's going to go run that meeting and try to close that deal. The further I can get them, the better off we are because we want to we want to push volume, we want to get more across the finish line, but for the reps to use it is to book a more secure meeting, right?
Mm.
There's a tie back to that was a good point that guy made, or that was a good story he told me versus that's an interesting technology. There are two different things that is going to be more compelling to make somebody show up to the meeting that you booked, which is the other half of the game when we do outbound. It's like you want to book the meet, you got to get somebody to show up to the call too. You have to
Yep.
continue to provide the value, but I think it's one of those things we try to instill early. It is all part of the onboarding resources. And then, yeah, the AI technology that we do have internally is linked back to all of our seismic and docket and all of our information. So I could go ask the system to say, hey, write me a prospecting email for Jason, based on the industry, reference a case study, talk about Jason's work history. Here's his LinkedIn. And again, it just
Yeah.
gives you this basis, and then you get really good at that, and then you start doing that at scale. But yeah, we try to arm them as much as possible early, and then force them to break bad habits of feature dumping and just talking about the product. It's like, hey, by the end of the week, I want you to have told this story 5 times. Now, you don't want it to be robotic, but getting people comfortable with being uncomfortable is like how you find success on outbound because you hear no more than you hear yes. So you've got to get out there and try those things.
Yep. I think the phrase that I always use is eating complexity for the rep, where it's like you should spoon feed them this stuff. Like they shouldn't
Yeah,
have to hunt around for stuff. It should be very easy to
100%.
find. Let me give you all a few quick ideas. So using customer voice, we worked with a company, Go Guardian. They sell ed tech. Very interesting company, but their BDR AE teams increased qualified meetings set by 42% quarter over quarter by having this internal lingo they used called priorities over product. That was like a new internal motto where we're only going to talk about priorities and problems. We're not going to talk about product. Assemble a messaging team. So at your company, if you're a leader, you should have like half a dozen folks, maybe 10, that are like the messaging experts that are extracting a lot of this great stuff and putting it into a document that looks a lot like this. The cool part is that, Sean, this used to take me like an hour per persona to do workshopping with a customer. And now we just have all the live calls that they've done and transcripts, and we just use ChatGPT and like pull it into something that looks exactly like this.
Yep.
So you need something for each of your personas, and some of it will be industry specific if you sell enterprise. You need something like this where you can plug in and get the talking points around what they care about, how they get the job done, what their problem is, what they want, and a couple value prop statements. Transcripts are a great way to get this. Marketing collateral is a great way. Your own firsthand experience speaking with the customers is a great way to get this. Like, there's a lot of inputs that you can use to get this information. So this is like an absolute must. This is going to feed all of like the messaging that gets created, the cold emails, the talk tracks, etc. The last thing a customer of ours a couple years back did really well over at Gong, they had a customer snippet bank. So, Sean, it sounds like you guys have like this big database of case studies and like,
Mhm.
dude, worst case, what you should have is a spreadsheet that on one column says company name, on
Yeah.
another column that says problem in one or two sentences, and then another one that just says solution. Just like what were they experiencing and how did we help them? Like,
Yeah.
and maybe you have a third or a fourth column that says industry if you're very industry
Yep.
specific with stuff.
Yep.
That's all you need. Like you need a cheat sheet though for the reps. Like it needs to be easy
That
to
was the
find this
first one
stuff.
we had, Jason. It was the name drop sheet. It was
Yeah, name
industry.
drop sheet. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the first one we started, and it's obviously evolved. But yes, I agree. Like that's the starting point. Build it out from there. But even just being able to reference some of your customers is a win up front.
100%. All right, let's keep moving. So training, strategy number four. Most reps, this is nothing against our reps out there. In my observation, we've worked with 200 sales teams in the last 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
Most people are really quick to say cold calling doesn't work. And then when I listen to them make a cold call, they pitch their product in the first 45 seconds of the call, or they sound really unsure of themselves. And there's a list of other things, but the fundamental soft skills of this are so important. Like the reps I've seen really crush it on the phones are not the ones with these crazy special talk tracks. It's honestly they're just really great at like great conversationalists.
Yep.
They're really disarming. They show up prepared. They don't sound uncertain about what they're saying.
Mhm.
And training, I think, is such a big opportunity. You can't be at average at outbound to make it work anymore.
Yeah.
You just can't. Like the unit economics don't work out for you to be average. Um, this is a study on 300 million cold calls. What you're looking at here in red is the average performer versus the top 25% quartile. And you can see that the average performer at a 5.4% connect rate, a 4.6 meeting booked rate. So that means that I have to call 20 people to get a pickup. And then, Sean, I have to have 20 freaking conversations to book a meeting. That's not sustainable.
Yep.
That is just not going to be sustainable. So that 5% meeting booked rate or 4.6% rather, that is a skill issue. That's not a data thing
Mhm.
unless you're calling the complete wrong person. That's 100% a skill issue. And you got to get into the double digits there in order for this to be an effective tool for you. And you got to get people to show up to the meeting.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of really compelling data from Chorus and ZoomInfo around like if there was one thing that you really focused on with the SDR team, it's like, how do I get past the first 80 seconds? That's where calls are won and lost. The average call lasts less than 8 seconds. Only 10% of them go longer than 2 minutes. You ain't
Mhm.
booking a meeting in 80 seconds. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, there's a couple things that I wanted to talk to you about around just high level how you guys think about training in the framework around the call.
Mhm.
And I'll kind of run through ours. We kind of think about it in three buckets: intro, hook, close.
Mhm.
I think the intro, what we really stress is that, let me know if you disagree, Sean. People pick up cold calls on accident. Like they thought that you were someone else. Hardly anyone is just sitting there waiting for some unknown number to call them and they pick it up. They think that you're someone else, a customer, doctor, school, etc. Right? So the permission-based opener, some sort of acknowledgement around, hey, Sean, I know I'm catching the middle of your day. I was calling because, and then having a really compelling reason for the call, and then
Mhm.
a do you got a minute? Or you could just go straight into the reverse pitch. That
Mhm.
reverse pitch is instead of pitching my product, I'm pitching the problem, right? So an example of what this might sound like is, hey, Sean, was giving you a call. We're working with Costco right now, and one of the big things that they've experienced opening up new manufacturing plants They're really trying to get better visibility around the OT environment and what machines are at risk and what aren't. Again, my name's Jason with XYZ Company. You got a minute for me to share a little bit more about that? That's my PBO. Reverse pitch. Sean says yes. Yeah. Like I said, we're working with Costco right now. One of the things that we're seeing is, and I give an example of a problem one, problem two. How's that resonate with you? That's my intro, right? I'm not talking about our product, what we do. Like I might have like a little one-liner maybe about how we help. That was a cybersecurity example, by the way. And then I have our hook. I needed like some problem-based questions that I'm going to ask.
Yep.
And then I need to close, right? I need to be able to ask for the meeting. I need to confirm them on the call. And if there's one pro tip I would give in the triple confirmation, and I wish normally we could spend hours talking about just cold calling. So I can only unfortunately give you guys the highlights today, but if there's one massive pro tip I could give in the confirmation, it would be get them to accept the meeting invite while you have them live on the call. This prevents you sending it to the wrong email address. This prevents it going from spam. This prevents it not showing up on the calendar properly. Like do that before you leave. And then the next thing that would be really good, because texting is such a big thing, is hey Sean, real quick, is this your cell phone? I'll shoot you a text to make sure that you got everything. Let me know if anything comes up. Another pro move is if you're an SDR is hey, you're going to be meeting with Dave. I'm going to get a group text going real quick so that you guys have an open line of communication before you chat. Cool. And there's a ton of other stuff that we could talk about, but I'm curious your perspective, Sean. I mean, this is like ZoomInfo's thing, dude. It's like cold calling, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've talked to so many great cold callers from ZoomInfo. Is there anything you've seen like shift in terms of your guys' strategies or tactics, like around the phones? Like, we can even zoom out a bit and talk about connect rates if you want. Um, what have you seen shift during, not only your time there, but really in the last couple of years too, when it comes to cold calling?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the storytelling topic a little bit.
Mm,
That reverse pitch is a great opportunity. Again, Costco example, right? That's that's how I would love reps in a lot of instances where you're trying to break the ice with somebody you've not spoken with, like a little credibility up front. I think the thing that I try to remind reps um, of now that I was maybe a little more hesitant to say out loud before was just like the expect the objection.
yep.
Like you're it's so incredibly rare that you cold call somebody and they say yes to your first pitch, to your very first ask for time. It's so
Yep.
rare. So, what are the most common objections that your company gets, that you get as an SDR team? Practice them regularly. Know them. Because the second you hear it, you know your next move. You're never going to be caught on your heels. I always thought that the reps that were the best at handling objections were the best SDRs because there was a confidence to making cold calls that others didn't have. There was
Yeah.
it was just a psychology thing for reps to go in and say like I just have to nail my pitch because if they push back, I know my next move. I've practiced this. I've
Yep.
gone through it. I know the five objections we get most: too expensive. We have a competitor. The timing's not right. Right. I'm not the right person. Those are the things that we know we can always go, hey, you could be an end user. This is something that you'd want to have in your hands. Let's talk about that and what the path might be forward. Um, and then it is one of these things now, and you mentioned the data, which I think is one of the things that we spend the most time on is optimizing for connect rates and understanding the targeting problem, the data problem, or the messaging problem, right? And it allows us to
Yep.
fixate the coaching in the right areas that builds this structure. Because, like, I think about it the same way you do with that layer of like expect an objection somewhere in here and be prepared to push back. I think the triple confirm you couldn't scream it any louder. It is one of those
Yeah.
things, I'm going to repeat the day and time and the name of the person you are going to meet with three times before I hang up the phone. I'm going to try to get
Yep.
you to accept that invite. If I can't because of something, then I might even get to your point, ask for the phone number confirmation to text them, or I'm gonna say, hey, listen, I'm gonna give you a ring before end of day to make sure that that had hit your inbox, that you've got everything that you need. Is that all right? Great. Typically, no one's ever gonna tell you no. Whether they pick up the phone, different story, right? But it's one of
Yep.
those things to get it, hit it, hit it, hit it. But if you have a structure, it's just something. I think about being an outbound rep and going from being new to confident. It was the repeatable process that I developed. That was the number one thing. It was like, hey, I've done my prep work, I've got my tasks, I
Yep.
know my talk tracks. Now all it is, it's about me showing up and executing versus that like wake up in the morning feeling of, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to start today. That's like there's the worst empty stomach feeling in the world. But I think the process and repeating these things, like that's where you build those really good habits. The soft skills take over at that point. But I think structure is necessary. And if you're on this call and it doesn't look exactly like that, try something new. I've seen it in the chat 4 or 5 different times on different topics. A/B test. See
Yep.
what works. See what lands. See what resonates.
Yep. To your point on objection handling, the way I think of the cold call is like the beauty of cold calling is it's so predictable. You know what's exactly what's going
Yeah.
to happen. You
Yeah.
can easily predict it. You can't do that in an enterprise sales cycle. You know, all kinds of shit can happen. Um, so like the practicing of it, I don't want to gloss over that. As a leader, you have to help facilitate that practice. Most reps are not going to practice on their own. So you have to facilitate that practice. Um, okay, I want to keep rolling. Cold email. Again, the argument for why you can't be average. The average reply rate's 1.9% versus 4.6 in the top 25% quartile. We have meeting booked rate 0.3% versus 1.3. It just you can't do your job effectively if you're average. You just can't. There's a couple of like I think really compelling things around email that would be good to share. And I will send out the deck to everyone afterwards. I think our team is going to send out either tomorrow or first thing Friday. There's a bunch more stats in there, like stuff like this. There's stuff like this, how long an email should be. Um, there's optimizing for mobile. There are subject lines. There's just all kinds of stuff that I want to share. But this is probably the most intriguing thing that we found in the data because everyone talks about relevance and personalization, but they don't talk about what someone senior might care about versus what someone in an IC or manager role might care about. And what we found in the research was that Director Plus has a higher reply rate if you personalize to the company. So if your relevance is more about what the company has got going on and what you're seeing in the company versus what you found off their LinkedIn profile that they like to do on their weekends, the reply rate tended to be higher. So of course, if you can stack some of this stuff where I have a good company-based thing plus an individual thing, plus I'm talking about their industry, like we can stack this. But I think the common mistake is thinking that uh, Sean, I don't know if you like the Eagles or not, but just because you also like the Eagles and like, Sean is from Philly, like that's not going to be a good enough reason for him to take a meeting. Like you might open the email and think it's kind of funny, but that's not going to be a good enough reason to take a meeting. Um, okay, we got a couple more strategies I want to make sure. So strategy number 5 is leadership and outbound really being a team sport. The objective here is leading from the front and setting the tone. Sean, I'm curious, like, do you what is the expectation of your managers around how they participate in cold calling with reps? Are they doing it with them? Are they making cold calls themselves? Are they getting in the pit? I know there's a big move in office for you guys, I think 3 times a week. Like,
Mhm.
tell me more about like how does the frontline leader engage with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we have partners like our sales enablement team, and we think about people like that, the SDR leaders themselves. All those people are ex-SDRs, right? Everybody in these capacities that support my SDR teams are former SDRs. They come from a place of experience and success naturally, right? I think the manager owns the role of being the mentor, the coach, the critic, um, and it happens in a few ways, right? It's going to be that tactical one-on-one session. It's going to be the call review sessions, leveraging the recordings from Chorus, and giving feedback and identifying the trends, the things that we need to cut out. The ability for us to do that cuts down on the time, right? If you just have to sit on the floor and listen to a rep on the phone and hear one side of the conversation, it's really hard to really get to the root of it. Now, not all phone calls record both ways, so that's always a hurdle at times. But it's the idea that they will live in the pit. We prioritize being in office. We only hire in office now, and the ability for the reps to be around their leaders who have experience to give the feedback, to ask for the call coaching. There's all of those things. And we're leveraging other tech to be able to do it as well. Like we have been generating like AI role play. I know we talked about that last week a little bit, to provide and feedback and coaching in a way where it's going to challenge the heck out of a rep to the point it's almost impossible to book that meeting, but you're going to just handle the objections. You're going to get the questions that you don't know the answers to, and you're learning. It's the repetition. And then the
Yep.
scoring model we associate with it is based on our traditional rubric that the manager will look at, review, give feedback, work with the rep on. So it is a full circle thing. And then I think one of the biggest value adds is peer to peer coaching too. It is a team sport. The manager, say, is the coach, but the peers coaching peers carries so much emphasis internally for us. I think that's the one where that makes the biggest difference. Um, Sometimes you don't want a manager or somebody to hear a call, or you hate the sound of your
Yeah.
own voice. But sometimes a peer giving that is going to be, that kind of take a deep breath. Okay, cool. You can take some feedback, take some criticism, go apply it. But yeah, it's the manager's job to really help develop that talent because it's all an opportunity to get promoted up and out, right? And have our
Yep.
SDRs move on to bigger and better things over time.
Love it. So, couple of quick ideas for everyone here. We just wrapped up an engagement with iHeartMedia and had quite a bit of success with their AEs, especially. Dude, they just get in the pit and make the calls with the reps. So just like you're talking about, Sean, it's like in the pit, like as a manager, you have to make sure that you're not being super hands off with your reps now that you're in a leadership position. Like you got to show them that you still got the goods, you know? Run structured outbound blocks. I've seen companies do this all kinds of different ways, but there should be a couple of power hours that you do with a team where everyone is making calls at the same time and you can feed off of that energy, whether virtually or in person. Yeah, Colin says I've never had a boss that would pick up the phone. I mean, there's nothing worse than having a manager that like won't engage in the activity with you. And then proactively blocking off time for coaching. It's one of our clients, Build Ops, did a really good job of that recently. And it totally shows in the results. Um, okay, we got two more strategies we need to cover in the next 5 minutes. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but data, you have to be thinking about data. Like this does not work if you have shitty data. The math for an account executive, especially, because a lot of your account executives, a lot of your leading account executives that you want to self-source more pipeline with, and if you have bad data where you have low pickup rates and the rep is unskilled at booking meetings, I mean, this is what the math equation looks like.
Mhm.
It's 60 hours of cold calling over a quarter to generate one opportunity. That just doesn't, you can't make that happen. It just doesn't work. That's 5% pickup rate, 5% booking rate, 70% show rate, 30% opportunity creation rate. I mean, it just doesn't work. The math equation doesn't work for the AE to do this if you can't get great data. So I've seen a couple of, this is maybe a hot take question for you, Sean. I think having good, accurate data is one. There's a company I recommend, TypeNext, who is not a sponsor, that will validate, like ZoomInfo phone numbers, for example. They'll go through and like validate which ones are most likely to pick up. It's really great. You guys have some of that technology built into ZoomInfo. Um, what's your hot take on dialers?
We've tested a lot of them.
If you have one, yeah,
Yeah, we've tested a lot of them. I think like the way you'll hear people talk about AI, it says it's only as good as the data being fed into it.
yeah,
Um, you could have, the power parallel dialers of the world, and it's not going to make a difference if what you're feeding into it is crap. If there is no layer of data accuracy, you you're gonna have reps quitting left and right because they're gonna spend all day knocking out hundreds of phone calls that lead to nothing.
yep,
So I think it's actually dialers don't mean anything, candidly, if you don't have data to feed it. I think there's a great opportunity for power dialing, parallel dialing when you've got the right set. But you also need to understand that in terms of your addressable market. Um, because there's going to be some big addressable markets that you can plow through day after day after day. It's not going to matter. And there's going to be other ones where you need to take the white glove treatment, and having some fancy dialer doesn't really make sense because you need to take that very personal approach with everybody. You don't have as many shots to take. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Yep.
we've tried just about everything to this point since I've been here. Um, but we are a heavy phone activity team, so we are quite reliant on our dialer systems. I think it's about 85% of the meetings booked by our outbound team are over the phone.
Love it. So, lastly, tech stack.
Yeah.
Dude, we could talk all day about tech stack, but I think like what people should see is that the essentials, and I just have to say this because I still see this. CRM, sales engagement platform, isn't essential for outbound. So I see this all the time where SDRs get, seats of a sales engagement platform and then they want AEs to outbound and they don't pay for seats on their sales engagement platform. I don't get it. So like you have to have a sales engagement platform. There's got to be call recording so that you can coach around the cold calls. You got to have good data, got to be leveraging AI. You need calendar routing, that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
The situational things are the dialer, the AI coaches, the list builders, the gifting, the video messaging, sales nav, partner channels. Intent data may or may not be a good fit for you depending on your situation.
Mhm.
Um, so I wanted to give the squad here some situational and like kind of tech things to think about. One other thing I wanted to share before we bounce is, and I'll drop the link into the chat. We have a few spots open for free audits. There are some things that you need to do in order to qualify for one of these audits, but we do offer free cold calling audits where I'll actually go through and like benchmark what your team's doing. I do about three of these spots per month. You just got to be a sales or enablement leader with 20 or more reps. So I dropped that into the chat. If this looks like something that would be a good fit for you or your organization or your leaders, I do have a few spots open in January where we might be able to squeeze you in. But I'll take a look at your talk tracks. We'll assess your team's effectiveness against other great companies that we've worked with. And if you're trying to increase the amount of meetings that you're booking and op creation, we can definitely look to see how we can help you with that. Sean, good to have you today.
Well,
We covered a lot. We didn't get to some of the stuff. I'll send out the slide deck on Friday. I think it is. The team will follow up afterwards, so you have it. But I appreciate you joining us, Sean, and for the rest of you, I think there's about 450 of you at one point that joined. Appreciate the engagement. That's all we got for you. Have a good,
yeah,
safe holiday. All that good stuff.
it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Cool. Yep. Thanks, team. See ya.